Hi everyone. So thank you very much for, welcome to the 53rd edition of the International Film Festival Rotterdam. And you are now in the focus section, and we are very, very, very happy to finally, it's a really long-awaited opportunity to celebrate the work and life and career of the Hong Kong filmmaker Scud. Scud's career has really started almost like 15 to 16 years ago, and this year he announced that he's going to retire, and part of a plan is to convince him not to retire. So I have to say, Scud is really the pride of Hong Kong cinema, the pride of Hong Kong queer and trans cinema, and yesterday I actually told him that he is truly the pride of cinema. And so without further ado, let's actually welcome Scud to the stage.
So, yeah, we are supposed to sit down.
Yeah, please. Yeah, so actually, let's start. And first of all, once again, thank you very much for being here. And so today, I think the format is that for the first hour to hour, 15 minutes, we're going to, the two of us are going to chat. And then after that, we're going to open the floor to the rest of you. And so you will be welcomed to ask some questions and interact directly with Scud. And also, I think today my original plan, which we may or may not follow, is the idea to think a little bit about 4 ideas that constantly recur in Scud cinema, which are basically the 4 Buddhist ideas: birth, aging, illness, and death.
生老病死，生老病死。
So this is not to suggest that this is the only way to think about Scud's film, because your films are so multidimensional. So I'm going to ask you to be honest, I'm going to ask you a really blunt question, because because even to be honest, I noticed that in permanent residence you make fun of a very interesting impression that some of your spectators might have when they first saw your film. The part of the pleasure and joy of watching your films, especially in the beginning of your career, is your representation of really beautiful, athletic, and also youthful bodies. And so there is a sense of deep appreciation of these bodies. And so now, before we delve into the question, let's look at some of these bodies. Okay, so Peter, would you like to show us some of the bodies? Yes, clip 1. Oh, wow. Yay.
May I say something?
Please.
Actually, I can count 5 of them here today. Stand up. Ajahn. Jimmy. Simon. Simon. You. Thank you. Me too. I was there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you probably couldn't recognize me by that.
Now I need to do the Easter egg search. I have to say, well, this is really close to the opening sequence of your first film, City Without Baseball.
Yep.
And I remember that as a younger man, when I first watched this film, I was just like, wow, like this is really cool, because like for the first time, it's almost like someone is able to put these beautiful athletic Asian bodies on the screen. Maybe I would ask you, I think in Chinese we always call it 初心 or 初心, which is like your original intention.
Yeah. Actually, this scene got me into big trouble. Yeah, because I was there after I was labeled a wise filmmaker who just want to rip off the body of the guys and try to win the pink money from homosexual and all that sort of things. Actually, I didn't know it would be such an impact at all, because I'm shooting a locker room, so that's the locker room. Okay, well, it was more artistically designed. It's not really a locker room, of course. It's not really a shower, but we make the shower ourselves. And then before shooting it, I asked the baseballer whether they're okay with it. And they circle, like in the match, they circle themselves and then they talk a little bit and then they say, okay, here, they can do it. So that's about it. But back at that time, I mean, after this, I realized that Hong Kong has become so conservative. This was a big deal. I couldn't believe it, because when I was younger than that, when I was small, I actually saw similar things from our own cinemas too. Well, foreign, of course, European, of course. So was that my initial intention to show male bodies? I mean, after 10 films, I don't think I can deny it. But it was indeed the controversy of the City Without Baseball that made me more defiant in that aspect. So I thought, oh, you guys cannot even take this. So in the next film, Permanent Residence, actually the two leading men hardly put on any clothes. But that second film was very well received. So I think even the audiences, sometimes they can be preached on, they can be coached. We can still move them. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I want to ask you a question regarding how you film them, because I think, there are two ways to look at it, right? One way to look at it is that the camera is right there, showing us these bodies, allowing us to touch them, to be with them, and to be them sometimes. But at the same time, sometimes I would also feel like, yes, there is a camera. And so I'm also being aware of a little bit of a barrier between myself and the actor. How do you negotiate that relationship, or
You can only admire from a distance, not touching it. That is almost like my life. I have been admiring, I've had a chance to admire so many beautiful things, but never really got my hands on it. So I guess maybe that's the common agony for most of the mankind, maybe.
Oh. So I can also see that you, at least in the beginning, City Without Baseball, Permanent Residence, and definitely also Amphetamine, the romantic relationships themselves also have that kind of quality. The idea is that they're very intimate, and they have really, really profound love relationship. But at the same time, the characters seem to keep a distance between each other.
Yeah, so close and so far away, yes, it did, yeah.
Is that something that you model upon some stories that you know or your personal experience, if I may ask?
Oh, yeah. City Without Baseball was the baseballer's own story. Okay, when we premiere in Hong Kong, I brought the whole team up, and the audiences asked, hey, how true is the stories compared to your real life? The captain answered on behalf of me. He said 90%.
Wow.
Okay, so City Without Baseball is really 90% of their sport, of their life, of their love. Permanent Residence, Yeah, because it's about me. So I would say 60% maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
So because I think in the earlier stage of making films, I would be more confident with topics that I really know that actually happen. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can, I mean, when I'm challenged, I can argue against it vigorously. So I think that's maybe the reason that is quite real. Amphetamine is a fusion of two of my friends' story. I fuse the two persons' life into one person's life. So it's also quite very close to reality. But after these three, maybe, okay, the number 4, Love Actually Sucks, is totally reality. But I think after that, I begin to drift away from the reality more because I want to explore more imaginary, more hypothetical scenario and situations. So it become more and more, I don't know how to say. Yeah. So, but then in Naked Nation, I bet to 100% reality again. So, yeah. So, have I answered your question?
More than answering. I think you, it's really, yeah, because it's really a treasure to hear, it's always a treasure to hear how a director basically relates their own stories, relate their own experiences to the film. Mm-hmm. And one thing I notice is that basically the idea is that in amphetamine, I think the idea is that you, first of all, you asking definitely the characters to take their clothes off, as you said, and to also have a lot of intimate scenes together. But at the same time, I think in amphetamine, I remember that there's a really, really difficult scene in which the main character, Kafka, played by Byron, is being, unfortunately, is being like violated, being raped in a tunnel. And it must be a really difficult scene to direct and also for Byron to act in that particular case.
Yeah, I think not just for me and Byron, also for the supporting cast. Mm-hmm. Like, because we are not a big studio, we don't have budget to prepare for 10 sets of uniforms for the actors to do it. So there's actually only one. So once Byron fell to the water, and I could only have that one take. I couldn't retake it. So I had to I had to tell the supporting cast, one being his good friend, one being my own classmate, who has passed away, and I told them that if you love this guy, if you want him to be awarded, if you want him to have a promising future, you have to be treating him as badly as possible. So that, I think that was a very, I mean, I was very tense watching it done, and it was done so perfectly. But then after that, when we move on to the tunnel scene, I was the one who couldn't take it anymore because Byron's crying was so powerful. I actually left the set myself. I walked along the canal for a long time. I actually left the scene. I keep asking myself, why am I doing this? I mean, why should I make my actor, make myself, and maybe even the audience is so difficult? But I don't know. I mean, I just felt like I had to do it. That's it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a very, I would say that it's definitely a very important scene in the entire film. And it also gives that particular character so much depth in terms of, like, why is he dependent on amphetamine? But I also want to ask you this question because representing male rape is a very, very difficult thing, not only in Hong Kong, frankly, in international cinema. And so...
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
The international cinema have moved backward more than Hong Kong by that time, yes.
Interesting.
Very, very, very conservative. I mean, you see you hardly see any skin, basically, at that time. I mean, it was so different from when I was watching Pasolini, I was watching Greenaway. I mean, nudity was so casual, so natural. Yeah, but by that time, I mean, early, of this century, they all disappear. Yeah, I don't know why, but maybe I still live in my old days. Sometimes I say actually my value was fixed by the time I was about 14. Day after, I recall, I reflect on my life. Like more recently, I do that because I'm going through my earlier days of diary, because I begin to write a memoir requested by the Taiwanese publisher. So then I looking at the diary, say like 20 years ago. Oh, this guy, I feel, I'm still him. Yeah, so maybe even if you go back 20 years, it's still me. So have I driven way too far?
No, not at all, because I think it's very interesting in a way that we were talking about original intention, right?
Yes.
Choosing.
Yeah.
And by the way, choosing is much more like a Buddhist concept, which basically talks about when you determine, for example, in your case, when you began to make a decision to make films, what was it that was motivating? And so in some ways, it's beautiful to hear that you keep that choosing and just keep going with it.
So I would say that the biggest motivation for my making one after one films, well, undressing some beautiful men is part of it, but I would say I keep on trying to sharing my idea of death with my audiences, with whoever that I can talk to. So film is it's the only channel, only platform for me at that time. So it would be, I think it would be the real original intent of my films.
Interesting.
Yes.
So let's talk about death. And I know it's a very serious question, but at the same time, I could also see that in your films, every time you talk about death, there's always a sense of hope, sometimes at the very end of the film, other times in the middle of the film. But let's actually talk about an early example first, Permanent Residence. Even though it's a film about an unrequited romantic relationship, and it's really difficult romantic relationship, death really haunts every single scene in that film. Yeah. And I remember that in the Q&A earlier, I asked you, well, what were you going through, if I may ask? This may sound like a very personal question.
Yeah, no, it's not personal. I mean, since I was a kid, I think maybe about from 9 years on, I began to think about death. And I realized that one day I would die, which is comparatively fine, but my grandmother would die before me, and so I will lose her forever, supposedly forever. I mean, I logically, I don't think it should be that absolute. That you come out and then you are totally eliminated from a moment. To me, that doesn't make much sense. Yeah. But because I couldn't find the answer, I tried philosophy, I tried religion, I tried talking to people who I think is much wiser than me, but I never really get any satisfactory solution to my problem. So I keep on losing sleep. Okay, until after I moved to Hong Kong and I began to work, very intensive work, two jobs, 3 jobs at the same time. So I decided I cannot do this anymore. I cannot always lose my sleep by thinking of this unthinkable thing. So suddenly I closed my window. I think the window was closed for maybe at least 10 years, maybe close to 20 years. That I never think about that anymore. So because I had to focus on my obligation in life. But then the inevitable happened. My grandmother passed away in 1998. So that was a loss I could never live with. So thereafter, I decided that I should spend as much time as possible in my life to looking into this biggest issue of our life. I have to find a way to somehow meet her again. Okay, so that became a very core underlying thing in my life. And so when I start making films, I already had some idea about it, so I gradually fused them into my otherwise looking like love stories or dramas to communicate with whoever who are interested in the topic. And such communication, I think it culminated in Apostles. The whole film is totally about that, only one single subject. So that's why I was quite content to leave. To quit after making Apostles, because I think I've said everything. Ultimately, I want to say about death. So I can leave this topic. I can leave this field with not much regret.
Yeah. And because death is such a deep topic, and I have so many questions around it. So do let me know if you feel like it's too heavy.
No.
Because not only death, but also, what you have just said reminded me, of course, Ivan in Permanent Residence, and his intimate relationship with his grandmother, and his determination to try to find her again. A question that I have is that I noticed that you have this interesting, shall I say, fixation that, for example, Ivan, Adonis, the idea of like the age of 30, dying at the age of 30.
Okay.
Is there a particular reason why you choose the age of 30?
I didn't choose it. It was a big mistake. When I was small, as I said, I don't really like to sleep. So then I overheard the adults' conversation, obviously, very easily. We 5-6 of us living in only about 140 square feet, okay, of space. So I heard my grandmother talking to my auntie, to her daughter, and about my fate. Actually, she took me to see a fortune teller. Yeah, soon after I was born. I was born in Guizhou, then she took me to Guangzhou, and then so 算命算命點講啊?
Yeah, fortune telling.
Yeah, the fortune teller. So they can write about your prediction of your whole life, the major events, the major crises you are going to face. And my grandmother said there was nothing beyond 30. So the implication was very clear that anything after 30 is either uncertain or non-existent. So my grandma was very upset with that. I think that may be one of the reasons she was in particularly spoiling me. Okay, and then I said, oh my God, I have got only 30 years. And so I live under that, I wouldn't say shadow, I've been living under that motivation. Yeah, I think I did work harder than the usual person, because to me it's always like, oh, I can't have anything that would happen after 30, so anything I want to do, I have to do it before that. Okay, but then suddenly I was 30 and I was still surviving, so that's almost like a miracle to me. And then when I wrote the stories, yeah, I want to put that into my leading. Yeah, once, twice, three, yeah, even 30 years of Adonis is actually becoming the title. But in fact, I do come across other person of similar thought, that they have the feeling that somehow I just cannot live beyond 30. So I think maybe not living beyond 30 is a very romantic idea.
And also, in some ways, in a very Mishima way, like leaving this world with a beautiful corpse. Yeah.
Well, but that's scary. That really scared me. The way he ends his life. I mean, I don't think he's the Earthling. I don't think he's from this planet. I think he's from another planet.
Yeah. We will talk about Mishima later on, but I would like to keep kind of pursuing this line of thought because. Voyage is the film that, because in our Q&A, I remember that you quite directly related to your contemplation on death in relation to your grandmother's passing. Mm-hmm. And it's also, as you said, it's also one of the first films, I wouldn't say one of the first films, but a film that really focuses on death, like in every single vignette. Yeah. In that film, I remember that there's a really beautiful line spoken by Rio's father. Death is the dissolution of differences.
Yes, when all differences dissolve, yes.
Yeah, would you mind telling us a little bit more about what that line, like how do you come up with that line, and at that point in your career and in your life, what does that mean to you?
Okay, in that scene, I mean, Rio is a very depressed guy, and he is contemplating ending his life sooner rather than later. So he dreamed about his father, who's dead. His father is a very famous Dutch painter and a good fan of Salvador Dali. And I mean, in reality, yes, yeah, real. So he told me the dream. He told me how he dreamed of his father, but the line was what I added to it. Rio said, I cannot choose between you and mom because mom is still alive and you are already over there. I don't know who I want to be. I should be with. That is very sad, but that is very common for people with severe depression. Okay, it's very difficult to choose between moving on or just stopping it. So his father said, I can't tell the difference because in my world, in this part of the world, all differences dissolve. That is one of my imagination of what death would mean to us, comparing to our life before death. Yeah. So somehow that's my imagination. But I think I might be closer to the truth than pure speculation.
But I want to, I don't know if it will really lighten up our conversation a little bit, but in the same film, I remember that there's a double suicide. Mm-hmm. And, or maybe double suicide is too nice a word, because first of all, the woman, like the lover, is being killed and murdered by the man, but then the man is actually being, like, he then carries the head to the countryside. It reminds me of the very kind of Japanese imagination of like a double suicide, which is a really beautiful imagery and a beautiful idea, especially popular in the Tokugawa period, in which a pair of lovers would commit double suicide to use death as a way to arrive at the kind of ideal romantic relationship.
Well, whether we like it or not, we see that happen a lot in our real life. I think everywhere, maybe more in Asia, because I think deep down we are stronger believer of afterlife. Yeah. So if we cannot move on, if there's so much suffering, why don't we move to the next world together? Okay. So yeah, that's quite some of us feeling about. And as for Spider Guy murdering his girlfriend out of hatred of love, and then he killed himself as well. And eventually, the ending scene of the film was the two heads somehow meet in the ocean. When I premiered this film in America, I got the response I got was very surprising to me. The audiences didn't like it, didn't get it. They find it absurd. Okay, so I had to explain to them some of our Oriental belief that we have afterlife, blah blah blah. That if we cannot, I mean, one of the most romantic legendary drama of Chinese is how two lovers end their life and became the butterflies in the heaven. So yeah, that is quite deep in our culture. So maybe not so much shared by other places.
We will return to death a little bit later because I want to actually use this opportunity to think a little bit about another kind of transcendence, which is the relationship between the mentor and the mentee in Utopians. And so
maybe you will be more interested in that than most of the people.
Yeah. But in some ways, the idea is that in that particular film, the idea is that the student is actually like developing a very strong intimacy with the professor, but this intimacy has a lot to do with both the intellectual aspect and the physical aspect. We do have a clip, so maybe we can take a look at the second clip, which is from Utopians.
苏格拉底的学生阿尔齐比亚德斯对他老师说：“我费尽心思亲近你，只为了你的智慧。与其让智者嘲笑我不懂把握人生的机会，我宁愿被世上所有的凡夫俗子辱骂致死。”
So what motivated you to think a lot about, well, maybe not a lot, but like to explore that relationship? And it's such a platonic, yeah.
In my whole life, only one boyfriend was gay. The others are all straight. And I don't know why it always happened to me that, well, I do attract some women, fine, but I attract straight men. And, well, of course, they attracted me. So it brought me into one after another torturous passions. So sometimes I want to find a way out of it. I think maybe we don't have to be really struggling with sexuality, and we can still be the best friend. And sometimes we can still share a lot of things, maybe only accept one or two major elements in a relationship. So it happened to me over and over. And then I became old. I became the senior one. And then I continued to attract maybe sometimes younger men, gay or straight. So then I look back at the great time, okay, when it was so common for we have mentors and students and apostles, I mean teachers, students, and the student would give their beautiful young body, and the senior will give the knowledge, or sometimes money, care, etc. So that sort of exchange, I mean to me it's not that bad. Of course, two young intellectual talent men and women together would be the perfect combination, but such perfect scenario seldom happen in the world, I don't know, somehow. So that's why I put myself into the show. Not exactly, I was not exactly that guy in the film. I'm better than him. I'm not that wise. But I just want the conflict to be stronger. To make us think about is such kind of relationship evil one or actually a reasonable one.
It's actually, I mean, this film, I remember that in the Q&A in this film, you mentioned that you were really taken in by Fassbinder's cinema. And so we also had a really, really long chat about this situation. The idea is sometimes, like when we are talking about your relationship with Fassbinder, it's not so much about, well, you watch it and you want to do the same thing, but it's almost like there is something there that you may have the same kind of angst or sensibility or feeling, and you just go ahead and do it. Do what it's coming out from yourself. And so my question is, the idea is that you mentioned that you use a lot of, especially long takes in this film. Yeah, like, would you like to kind of like talk a little bit more about?
Right.
Yeah.
I admire him because he was very prolific. I could never get even closer to him, and he was not very resourceful, but he could still use everything surrounding him, like all his staff would become his crew, and would become his actors as well. I think that's nice, and I admire him for being able to die so young after accomplish. So he's my ideal, and I because I live past his age for long, so I'm disappointed with myself, but what can you do? So that's why in Utopians I pay tribute to him, and I always like long shots, because long shots would give the chance for the actors to show off their ability. But the shooting of it is very difficult, and even not financially viable, I can tell you that. It's very difficult to do, unless you have unlimited money. So so I try a bit, and well, I think it worked. Yeah, but I mean, for me, it's like 30, 40 takes for almost every of those. It is very demanding. It's very torturous for the actors. So every time when I say okay, there will be a huge applause among the crew and the actors of those scenes.
Wow. Talking about long shot, as a matter of fact, I have to maybe digress just for one question, because I think there's this really incredible long shot, like long take, and also long shot in this case, in another film, which is actually basically it takes place in Barcelona, which is like Body Shop, exactly.
Yes.
Sorry, sometimes when you're at the stage, you're like, oh my God. And so, yeah, in Body Shop, there's this really incredible long take when the guy comes out of the bedroom, then goes onto the street, and runs. How did you do that?
Okay. May I take this off
before
I send this? It is a little bit hot. Okay, sorry about that. It's very easy. It's only one take. Wow. And indeed, while we were shooting daytime scenes, I warned the actors that, hey, tonight I'm going to make you do one thing you will never forget in your life. Then he said, what's in your mind again, Mr. Director? I said, you will know then. Okay, and then I said, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, don't worry, we have already checked the whole path. There's no grasses, there's sort of things on the ground. He said, no, you can't be serious. I said, of course I'm serious. So then he ran out. And then initially I was thinking of having only one doing the run, but then the ghost, this guy here, he volunteered to be the second one. I said, okay, yeah, you might actually, you could look nicer for 2 running. So they went ahead, and that was like 800 meters. And then after I checked the playback, it's okay. So I walked back to the building, and then I found the guy at the front actually crying. Then I thought, oh, was it really so hurting, so mentally so hurting? He told me that, no, Mr. Director, I have a fat of this. Yeah. So that's why he didn't have to go to army even because of this. So running 800 meters was like running 8 kilometers for him, and it was so painful. I was very touched. I mean, he could simply tell me that, but he did it anyway. So I think we usually have very, very devoting actors. The only reason that some things are not happening in the cinema is because of the producer or the director. They don't have the gut to do it. The actors can always do it.
And actually, thank you very much for sharing this with me, because I think, and with all of us, because I think one thing I observe is that you are very, very kind and also very, very generous to all your actors, and your actors also love you a lot. And one thing I'm thinking about is the relationship between your cinema and these actors, precisely, because in some of your films, especially Naked Nations, definitely, one particular theme is about aging as well. And Utopians, there is an element about aging. And so the idea is that, do you really think, or do you think that the cinema, the camera, has the ability to capture and preserve these actors in their youth?
Certainly they do, and actually a lot of things. Like in my film, the earlier films mostly done in Hong Kong. I think I shot the most special, unique, iconic location of Hong Kong that no other filmmakers have ever touched on. And some of them, after I did it, they're gone. Okay, the city changes and everything changes. So I was very glad that I captured them with the image. As for our youth, obviously, I mean, I always encourage beautiful people to shoot some nude of themselves. Yeah, because then after 10, 20 years, you can still show it off. Yeah, even to your children. Yeah, but otherwise, I mean, you can. How can you show it? Yeah, the picture is the only proof, right? The video, the footage is the only proof. So I think it's always a good idea to capture anything that's beautiful in the world. It's actually make much more easier nowadays, right? I mean, when I was small, I mean, we had to go to the very specialized shop to even take one picture. Now with this phone, you can take 100 pictures every day and footages. So why not? And that is one reason why I insist on experimenting in Naked Nation of iPhone filmmaking. The whole film was made by iPhone only, and even earlier version of iPhone, because some of the footage was from me earlier. And I want to show that with this new tool, with this new toy, you can capture life as it is instead of having to reproduce it later. So I think that makes the filmmaking a broader possibility. But as I told my cameraman Charlie last night, that it might make some of people like him losing his job. But he disagreed. Yeah.
But at the same time, I've also heard a lot from you that the camera can reproduce reality, yes, but not always giving us reality, yes, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's also something that is about it that is reconstructing it or constructing it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. I would like to ask you, basically, like, let's actually go into another film that is actually really, after Utopians, obviously, Adonis, like 30 Years of Adonis. And this particular film, I think, a very important thing is that, again, we are dealing with the theme of like dying at the age of 30. And so the first thing I would like to ask is that there are some really, really challenging scenes in this particular film. And
a lot.
A lot. And yeah, and so, so there is a masturbation scene, there is a gangbang scene, and also there is this really, really shocking, powerful ending scene. So maybe before we continue, let's actually take a look at the final scene to kind of refresh our memories.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. 大叔，我抢！
长得这么美有什么用？忍着点，我会很快的。别怪我，怪你的命。
Is he going to be left there?
Yeah. I would like to ask you about working with Adonis. Like, basically, basically all three scenes. Let's actually start with this scene because we've just watched it. How did you build that trust with Adonis? Because it is a really difficult scene to handle emotionally. Yeah.
Well, Adonis appeared in all my last 5 films, leading especially Utopians, Adonis, and Body Shop. He said that he watched amphetamine before, so that gave him the confidence of what sort of work I'm going to do. But do expect the difficulty. Imagine, I mean, I don't think I can easily find another pair of actors who can do the bungee jump for me just for shooting it. And so maybe that set a good example. The film was hailed as a success in all senses. So many of my following actors would have faith in me from that film. Yeah.
And I remember that Adonis also kind of talked a little bit about the fact that, like in some of these scenes, it's really difficult to handle, and so there can be moments of hesitation or moments of feeling that, well, I don't know exactly whether this is something what I would like to do. Have something like that occurred? Or?
Yeah. But not a lot. Credit have to be given to my very unusual actors. They can just do anything, sometimes even beyond my expectation. They could even say, Mr. Doctor, maybe I can do a little bit more than that. Oh, okay, but I mean to ask a mainstream name actor to do masturbation scene right in front of the camera, yes, as you said, that is very demanding. And how could he do it? I don't really know. The only thing I could do was I tried to relax him. Yeah, on the set, when he failed, so-called fail, and I would chat with him, try to give him as much distraction as possible for him to relax. And then I think at the end it is his professionalism, it is his pride that make him to achieve something which I think to any single actors in the world would be very difficult.
Yeah. And I have to say, like both of your professionalisms are really, really admirable. And I would like to ask, the idea is that thematically it's very interesting because in 30 Years of Adonis, in a way that in this particular final scene, you choose to use a crucifix more so than the kind of like the other cross that a lot of S&M people would usually use. And then definitely the gangbang scene also has a very strong kind of crucifix imagery. And Chris, would you like to say a little bit about almost like the Christian imagery in this particular film?
Yeah, many people after watching my films, if they watch more than 1 or 2 or 3 of my films, they were very confused. At first, they thought I must be Christian or Catholic, and then they thought I was a Buddhist, and then they are confused. I believe in there being a creator of everything, the ultimate beginning of all the logics. But how he or she is, I wouldn't tell, and I wouldn't choose any of the suggestions that we have nowadays. And back in Hong Kong, I mean, those are the two sometimes conflicting religion. The major ones, I mean, you are either this or or that. So it had huge influences to the growing up of any young people there. So that's why I keep putting that into the story, because that is a case. You go into any single home, you would hardly find one without a cross or without a Buddha statue, right? So that is how we grow up, that's where we are living in.
And so in some ways, these are some of the imageries that are very ingrained in the life of many Hong Kongers. But by the end of 30 Years of Adonis, like you do have, especially the afterlife scene. So in some ways, we're coming back to the afterlife question. The afterlife scene does have a very strong reference to Buddhism. And so we do have a clip. So maybe Peter, would you mind showing that particular clip?
你在竹林里遇见的精灵，是前世相知带给你的幻觉。他们驱赶你去找到真相。人死后轮回前的最多749天里面，依然活在浴室里，脱离了肉身的约束，想去哪里就去哪里。
原来真有妈妈说的中阴身这些，
相信的就是真。
那是地狱吗？
是人间，如梦幻泡影，如露亦如电。
我还以为是因为我做过的事要受到报应。
我知道你做过性工作者，让自己或别人快慰，算不得什么错事。报应经常不在今生。
那是天国吗？
是人间。
我为什么会在这里？
这里是泰国，你其中一个前世是修着园的和尚，应该是他的业力引你过来。
So, in your search for the question of afterlife, and in this film, you refer to a particular and in this scene, you refer to a particular book on the question of after death, which is the Tibetan Book of Life and Death. Yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about what kind of research you were doing and in what way that inspired you to put that particular idea into your film?
Yeah, Death and Life in Tibet. I mean, that's a book I read quite a long time ago, and it has a huge impact to me. And I wouldn't say I take all the suggested scenario there, but I think some of them might be very true. I mean, it's just my instinct to believe in part of it at least. So I believe. So I try to portray my own imagination of the Bardo. Okay, I believe there's Bardo. Okay, yeah, and in that transition period, so we can be wandering everywhere, say goodbye to whoever who we wanted to before going into the next life. That's exactly what I imagine, and then I found this wonderful location that's in Thailand. That's a film park. The film park was built like over half a century before. The builder, the founder was already dead, and leaving behind some ruin and some very strange, very spectacular art piece. So I decided to shoot that and to show. I mean, this could be heaven, this could be hell, but like the Japanese belief that paradise is actually in our real life. Yeah.
It's a very, very beautiful line, because when Susan was showing exactly the ideas that, is it hell? No, this is humanity. Is it heaven? No, it's humanity. So in some ways, those differences are our perceptions in many ways. And I noticed that there is a gradual change in your way of thinking about afterlife as well. Yeah. Because I think Body Shop, in Body Shop there is another way of thinking about afterlife, and also you come up with a really clever way of preparing the dead body, like cooking it and having the relatives and lovers to share it. And definitely, I can totally see that, like, your understanding of afterlife gradually changes, and definitely in Apostles, of course. Mm-hmm. And as you said, Apostles really discusses the question of afterlife in a very dense, but also very eye-opening way. What are some of the changes when you progress from one film to another?
Okay. I gradually believe in afterlife. Now I'm a very firm believer already. I haven't really seen a ghost, but I have experienced that is not that cannot be explained by scientific phenomena. So I do believe there's another universe in action, actually all the time, but we don't cross so easily. So that's why we don't see ghosts that often. But they are around us. Call it superstition, I don't care. I mean, my research, my experience are pointing me more and more firmly into that direction. Maybe my own wishful thinking also work in that. But at least now, when I imagine my last days, my last moment, I don't think I would be so scared like when I was small. Okay, I believe I'm much, much more prepared for that moment, for that most dreadful moment of anybody. I hope I could indeed one day even getting over it to even look forward to it, but I'm not yet. I'm not there yet.
I think it's already at some kind of bodhisattvahood in some ways, because once you begin to kind of let go, right? I too want to ask a question about, like, also from apostles, because I think yesterday we had this discussion about, because you also mentioned that after a lot of people having seen apostles, including myself, like sometimes we would immediately make a mental reference to Pasolini's Salo. And again, the idea is that we are not suggesting that you went to see Salo and then you copied it, not at all. But the idea is that it's a highly original film, and in some ways, somehow maybe there is something, there are some angst, or there are some issues, deep structural compulsions and beliefs that somehow make you and Pasolini think about the same images, or very similar images. But I also know that you love Pasolini.
Yeah. And I also want to defend him for Salo. When I first watched Salo, I think I was still very small. I was as stunned as maybe anybody else first watching it. But that made me think a lot why he was doing that. Okay, at that time, my own conclusion was that he did that simply because he knew nobody else would be able to do it. I think that's good enough a reason for an artist. I think so. I mean, he says art is to create. That is my motto. And then later, when I saw the official new release of his whole things about Salo, he actually said he was using those very cruel scenes, like the Nazi time, the Nazi time scenes, to be cynical of the consumerism. At that time, there was he thought was killing his country, and I couldn't agree with him more. Consumerism is killing our culture. So yes, so I think he did it for a very noble purpose, not just to undress or to rape some young man and girl. No way. So although he did that in real life, maybe. Okay, but that is own thing. So in Apostles, Apostle is actually a film I quite firmly believe that it wouldn't be popular, but it would be maybe the film I'm most proud to having made it. When we before leaving Hong Kong, we had the film festival did a small retrospect, not as big as this one. They screened 4 of my films, including Body Shop and Apostles. And then people would watch both, including my friends, etc. And they would ask me, which one do you prefer? Okay, I asked them which one they prefer. It's almost 50-50. Okay, and they forced me to answer, you have to pick one, you have to pick one. Then I said, I suppose Body Shop is going to be more popular, but my heart is really with Apostles. Why? Because I reckon there might be other filmmakers in the world who could do Body Shop, but I dare say no one but me could do Apostles.
I do remember that yesterday you said that someone, a journalist, commented that this is like you are the Pasolini of the time, and
yeah, that was when it's screened in Berlin.
Yeah, and I do believe that it's not so much about the form of the film; it's about the passion and also about basically the passion, the beliefs that you're putting into your film that we can feel directly from your image. And Apostles, however, I'm really curious because like you also have a playfulness like in Apostles, because there's something very playful about the constant reference to someone filming. And Michael appears in the film.
Is Michael here?
And yes. So Michael is
Okay,
here.
Mr. Michael Kusa, could you stand up? Get undressed. You're my only actor who has not get naked so far.
Yeah.
So if you want to see this, is your only appearance on the cinema, I think, on a film? Yes or no?
And I get to Hong Kong. I said, okay, I'm ready for your movie. He said, well, you're not going to take your clothes off. You're going to wear a suit. I said, I was so insulted. I worked so hard to get a... Anyway, I hate you.
Thank you, Michael. I love you the same.
Yeah, and in many ways, I think those really interesting moments of self-reflexiveness are also moments of love. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Apostles, okay, obviously it's not Silo, don't worry. And it has a much better ending than Silo. So I think it also maybe kind of showing eventually giving some concession to my audiences. My audiences have been demanding a better ending from my film for so many years. I remember sometimes I was really feeling bad about myself. Like once in a Q&A, an audience told me that he watched Amphetamine 7 times, but never been able to reach the end because he knew it's not going to be making him happy. So yeah, and then, okay, at that time my response was, if I see a perfect ending, love story, I will shoot it, but I haven't seen one yet. Okay, so but then as I'm approaching an advanced stage of my career, okay, I do think my audiences do have their point. Yeah, I've been stubborn all along. I've been insisting on departing the world exactly as I believe it is in life. I could do something to make them feel a little bit better. So Apostle is actually, what do you think? It's actually quite a light-hearted film, after all.
I would say the beauty is it's very profound, but at the same time, as you said, it's very light-hearted, yes. Which I absolutely love. I can't resist asking you this question because, especially in this festival, we started with Naked Nations, and then you also had an opportunity to watch all your films like on screen. How do you feel like when you watch all of these films in the course of these few days and to revisit them, and then all come to Naked Nations?
I was in heaven. I mean, who else in the world have the chance to watch your own work from a big screen, 10 of them consecutively? I mean, I just couldn't believe I would even be granted such an opportunity. So I really, really appreciate it. I will forever be grateful to this film festival in my life because of that. And when I watched City Without Baseball, I was stunned. Okay. The last time I really seriously watching it was like 17 years ago. The differences was not just the 17 years that I have changed much. No, I haven't changed. And the film haven't changed, of course. But at that time, I was watching it after having watched it about 100 times in the preceding year in the post-production. So I couldn't really have a very objective assessment of the work. And now I watch it as if watching some other filmmaker's film, right? Because it's so remote. I cry because it was my most my least favorite son. Sometimes I feel even ashamed to talk about this maiden work of mine. I was more proud of Permanent Residence and Amphetamine. So, but when I watched it, I was like, oh my God! I mean, he's such a good kid. I've been treating him so badly. I actually cry watching it. So, and then I watched number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it varies. Okay, not that everyone I became more appreciative. No, not really. Number 8 and 9 I had to skip because it's such full house, and that I let someone else watching it. But because they are still very close, very near the recent one, so it shouldn't matter. Basically, I would say. I also like, again, my cinematographer, Charlie, he kept telling me that a film has his own life, actually. Yeah, when I say as a kid, he grew up himself. When I said the film hasn't changed, well, physically it hasn't. But somehow it's changed too. Yeah, also changed to the scenario that is surrounding the thing. Like my film, okay, if you watch it nowadays, maybe it's like, okay, a little bit radical, but not too much. But put you back 10, 15 years back, I think indeed I was a little bit ahead of time. A friend told me a couple of days ago that I was 100 years ahead of time. And so the time move, people change, culture change, and the film also somehow developed itself. Yeah, so that is what I feel. I will write about my thought of being the jury of my own films. That is very interesting.
That sounds really amazing. We'd all love to read it. Yeah. Let's actually see if we have questions from our audience members. Any question for Scud?
A lot.
Wow, a lot. So maybe we can start with you at the back. We will have a mic.
So, hello. I'm not sure if you will like my question. You discussed it earlier in about the film Love Actually Sucks. Mm-hmm. The scene with the two heads in the sea, sailing off into the sunset with beautiful music. And that the audience, especially West audience, had a problem with that. And so did I. Because it's about femicide, you know, killing a woman because she rejects you and she's happy with another man. So I'm always puzzled, why do men think it's logical, or why do they think they're allowed to do that? That's one thing. But you also mentioned afterlife. So I thought they will not go into a good, happy afterlife because he did suicide. It was not double suicide. She was murdered. So for me, it didn't become logical that the two heads, you know, like coming together and really drifting off. I thought, this is not logical. This is actually absolutely wrong. But I understand you have a freedom as director to do so. But still, for me, it was shocking.
Okay, great. Great first question. Okay. The story I told in the film doesn't mean I approve of it. Okay, but it is from the reality that I believe in. Okay, well, there's no reason to glorify killing someone and taking your life. That I agree, of course. But do you know what? That is the real story. That was really happening. So I was doing when I went to, I think I talked about that before. I actually went to the place, the the poor but cruel guy, yeah, spent the last 19 days of his life. I think at the end he paid for his, irrecoverable mistake. So it is a deadly sad scenario that none of us want to see happening again in the world, but they are happening. Am I celebrating them by putting their heads together? I was. Because that is love. And love actually sucks. So that is not love. No, we don't want those sort of love. But love, a very big substance of love are indeed that. The sense of ownership, the exclusivity, that love cannot be shared. We can share anything, we can even share money, but we cannot share love. So I think that's the dark side of love, but it's very dominant in many love. You might say it's not actually love, but I have to say they are actually love.
So,
okay, thank you.
So that's actually, I saw another hand at the front in the center, like the gentleman with the yellow jacket.
Okay. I wonder if you have an ideal audience that you hope to watch your films, and if you could maybe describe like what that audience looks like or things like. Like I think you sort of indirectly have told us, but I was just curious to hear you elaborate on that.
Okay, she's a great example. You don't have to disagree with me, you don't even have to like me, but you come see my film. All audiences are great audiences to me. Even some who became very critical of me after that, fine. Because I think a film belongs to the audiences after all. It does not belong to me anymore once I delivered it. So you like it, you hate it, you own it, okay? What I hate really is someone who have never seen my film being critical of me. That is what I couldn't take. But there are a lot of such people, I can tell you that.
Okay, do we have, yes, there's...
Hi, thank you so much for the talk. I have a question about your retirement. I feel creation is like a force that cannot be stopped in a way. And to retire when you are in the creative sector, it feels like you're trying to stop seasons from coming. Like you can't stop spring from coming. The question is, how can you arrive to such a decision, and how will you maintain it if you succeed retiring?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, wow. That's the big question. My actors are still working on this. I overheard their interviews each other. The interviewer was giving leading questions for them to say they don't want me to stop and etc. Well, while I appreciate that, I have to say, actually, Adonis was with me yesterday or the day before when we walked to lunch, and he said he was so upset about my decision initially, but then he watched 30 years of Adonis, and he said he finds some merit in my decision. Because, we will always come up with new ideas and new thoughts that we want to deliver. But to me, I don't just do that. I do it only when I believe I can exceed myself. Yeah, I can give my audiences something new, better even. So it became more and more difficult. I would say it became difficult after a film like 30 Years of Adonis. I think it's probably one of the most complete film I've ever made. So to overtaking them is not easy anymore. To overtaking Body Shop is not easy, I would say. So, and the reality is, my kinds of film, my genre of film, will never get the money back. Okay, there were only 2 out of my 7 films that I got my money back. The others are losing money. I lost money tremendously. So the reality is not so accommodating to me that I can just have my financial freedom, my creativity freedom to continue to do that. So it is not just that I really want to quit this. I'm at least 50% because I have to quit. Okay. So how I maintain it? I think I would do something else, even if I'm not making films. At least I can write. Yeah. So there would be a much cheaper approach for me to share my thoughts and stories with the people. And so that is one way. Another is, I was saying that I wouldn't be actively pursuing new creativity. So there won't be a film that is going to be just written and produced and directed by me, let alone invest. I have no money left. But if there is a scenario like director Stanley Kwan, he said to me that, I didn't put it into the film, he said that, what if I know you don't have money anymore, what if I give you the money? I find the money for you, and any actor, actress you want to show, I'll just get them to the set. You direct it for me, would you do it? I said, well, that is an offer no one on the planet can refuse, but that is not my direction. That is still not my direction. I might do something like that. I love film. I love this art. I would do anything, I mean, within my ability for the industry. That's fine with me. I'm not leaving because I hate it. So I'm leaving because I love it more than I could bear. Yeah, thank you.
So we will have time for one more question. Yep.
First of all, thank you for giving us the chance to get to know you face to face, and thank you for your talk. Before coming here, I was expecting to listen to some references of Paolo Pasolini, and I listened to many, and not only about Salo, but in general. I wanted to ask you this: if you identify your genre on films in the same way as Pasolini, how do you see the future of this genre, the future of this kind of cinema? And you mentioned something that Pasolini discusses about in his film Theorem, about consumerism. Can you see the future of this genre connected or related to the future that we live in through consumerism, if my question is clear?
I think the world is actually worse than he makes Salo in a way. We are totally overwhelmed by money, by commercial, and people become more and more reluctant to go to anything that requiring deep thinking or even difficult thinking. So there's nothing we can do to reverse the trend. I have been bucking that trend my whole career of 17, 18 years, and I think I fail. Okay, since it's the last question, I talk just a little bit more. Recently, I talked to a very close friend, and I said this. I said, initially, I wonder why Wanya want to celebrate me. But then I reasoned that she has a very good reason, because looking back, since Pasolini, seems no one ever make films like that, like me. So I'm proud to be, I am now, obviously, but no matter what, I mean, I've tried, yes, and I take a lot of pleasure in the journey. I meet very wonderful person, wonderful friends, and wonderful actors. And I lost, oh, no, I don't say that. I invest all my money and time. I'm so much older now. I look at the picture of me when I was in the premiere of City Without Baseball. I couldn't believe I've aged so much, but that's about it. I mean, at least that is not a good thing to me. I already live longer than Pasolini, okay? So in that sense, I could never be as great as he is. So yeah. I don't know what to say now. Okay. Yeah. If I answer your question, I think I did.
So I would just want to say, for all of us, you humbly said that you failed. You did not. On the contrary, I think you are, as I said, the pride of Hong Kong cinema, the pride of cinema, the pride of queer cinema. And I think it's so, for us, I think it's, I do want to echo what Adonis said in his interview for Naked Nations. I think there is a piece of us that is being taken from us. And I'm not saying that you are taking it from us, but I think your decision to retire, which we absolutely respect and also support, and even though we feel like there is indeed a piece of us being taken away by circumstances, we really feel like you have given us so much, like so beautiful, thoughtful, and really thought-provoking experiences. I do want to say that as you, in many of your films, have already said, like, death is also rebirth, retirement is also re-engaging in many different ways. So even though we may not see another film that is directed by Scud, you have already announced 2 re-editing projects, but there's so many creative works that we are awaiting to see from you. And so we are all very, very eager to see what will be coming out from you.
Right.
Yeah.
I will not stop. I mean, I can't live without working. So yeah, I'll find something else to do, definitely.
Absolutely. I want to first of all thank you. Thank you all the actors and crew members and everyone who is now sitting here with all of us, because you are really amazing contributors to Scud's works. And I also want to thank Michael, because I know without Michael's support and contribution, we won't be able to see so many good works coming out of Scud. Well, we will, but we will see a different kind. And I also want to thank Christina, who has made this event happen, and absolutely IFFR. And also thank you so much for everyone who comes here. But of course, thank you, Scud.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you all.